Part 5. What haunts them? The last archive was hidden deep inside Unity Station in a section that required special access. Hana led Thelvan alone, leaving the rest of both crews behind. As they walked through quiet corridors, she spoke softly. "What I am about to show you is not a secret," she said. "Any human can access the archive. We teach our children about it, but we do not share it lightly with other species. It is our most sacred place." They reached a door that looked like all the others, but when it opened, Thelvan felt a change in the air. The room beyond was vast, larger than it should be based on the station's external dimensions. The walls were lined with what looked like servers, countless machines humming quietly. Lights blinked in patterns across their surfaces. In the center of the room stood an old man, very old. His skin was thin like paper, his movements slow but deliberate. When he saw them, he smiled. "Captain Thelvan," he said, "I am Hyunwoo. I am 247 years old. I have lived through 2 extinction events. I remember them both." Thelvan's eyes widened. 247 years. Even with advanced medicine, that was an extraordinary age. "How?" Thelvan asked. "Life extension technology," Hyunwoo said. "We developed it not for vanity but for memory. Some of us choose to live very long lives so we can carry first-hand memories of our history. I was born during the 16th extinction event, a plague that killed 4 billion people. I survived because my mother hid me in a sealed bunker for 3 years until the plague burned itself out. I was 5 years old when I emerged. I remember the empty cities, the silence, the bodies." He paused, his eyes distant with memory. "Then, when I was 112 years old, the 17th extinction event occurred. Another plague, different strain, killed 3 billion more. I survived again. I have lived through humanity's 2 most recent brushes with death, and I will live as long as I can, so I can tell anyone who will listen what extinction feels like." Hana gestured to the machines around them. "This is the last archive. It contains consciousness backups of every human who died during our 17 extinction events. Not just their DNA, but their actual minds, their memories, their personalities. Billions of people who died too soon. Children who never grew up. Parents who never saw their children again. All of them preserved here." Thelvan felt cold.
All of them?
"How many?" "At last count, 47,300,000,000, Hyunwoo said. "Every person we could identify and reconstruct from genetic records, historical data, and preserved remains. We even recovered some from before we had the technology to properly preserve consciousness. We rebuilt their minds from what records survived. It is not perfect. Some are fragmentary, but they exist. Why?" Thelvan whispered. "Why preserve so much death?" Hana walked to one of the servers. She placed her hand on it gently, like touching a gravestone. "Because they deserve to be remembered. Because they did not choose to die. Because they were us and we were them, and but for luck we would be here and they would be there." She turned to face Thelvan. "You asked me yesterday why we are kind. Why we are not conquerors after all we suffered. This is why. Come, let me show you." She touched a control panel and suddenly the room filled with people. Holographic projections, thousands of them appearing around Thelvan. They looked like normal humans. Men, women, children of all ages. They moved and talked with each other, unaware of or unconcerned with the observers. "These are some of the archived minds," Hana said. "They exist in a virtual world we maintain for them. Time passes differently for them. They can live full lives inside the simulation. They can learn, grow, love, create. They are as alive as anyone, just in a different form." One of the projections, a young woman, noticed them and walked over. "Hana," she said warmly. "Have you brought another visitor?" "Yes, Minji, this is Captain Thelvan. He is from the Vellum people who visited Earth long ago." Minji smiled at Thelvan. "Welcome. I am pleased to meet you. I died 135,000 years ago in the 13th extinction event. A volcanic eruption buried my village in ash. I was 23 years old. I had a daughter. I never knew if she survived." "She did," Hana said gently. "Your genetic line continued. You have approximately 3 million descendants alive today." Minji's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you for telling me. Again." She faded back into the crowd of archived minds, and Thelvan realized she had probably asked that question many times. Had been given that answer many times and would ask it many times more. "We carry them with us," Hana said. "All 47 billion of them. Every ship we build has a backup of the archive. Every colony we establish includes their memories. Wherever humans go, the dead go with us. We will never leave them behind. Hyunwoo stepped forward. You asked why we are kind, Captain. I will tell you. We know what it means to be the last. I have lived it twice. I have stood in empty cities and wondered if humanity was over. I have searched for other survivors and found none. I have felt the weight of being responsible for whether your entire species sees tomorrow. His voice grew stronger. That feeling, that terror, that responsibility, it changes you. When you have felt it, when you have carried it, you understand something fundamental about existence. Every species is one disaster away from extinction. Every civilization is fragile. Every person you meet is a miracle of survival stretching back millions of years. How can we be anything but kind, knowing that? Hana nodded. We would never inflict the horror of extinction on another species. We would never make another people feel what we felt. We have the power to conquer. We have weapons that could sterilize planets. We learned to build them because we needed them to survive, but we will never use them for conquest. Never. Thelvan looked around at the archived minds, billions of them, preserved forever. This is what haunts you. Not just the memory of dying, but the memory of everyone who died. Yes, Hana said. Every human child learns the names of at least 100 people from the archive. We adopt them in a way. We learn their stories. We visit them in the virtual world. We make sure they are not forgotten. My adopted archive person is named Jamin. He died at age 7 in the 8th extinction event. Caught in a tsunami. I speak with him often. He is happy in the virtual world. He has grown, learned, lived a full life there, but he is still dead in the real world, and I will never forget that. Hyunwoo's expression grew distant. Do you know what the worst part of an extinction event is, Captain? It is not the dying. It is the not knowing. When I was 5 years old, emerging from that bunker, I did not know if anyone else survived. For months we searched. Every empty city we found, every silent town, I thought we might be the last. That feeling never leaves you. Even now, 247 years later, I sometimes wake up afraid that everyone is gone except me. He looked directly at Thelvan. That is why we preserve the archive, so that no human is ever truly the last, so that even if our physical bodies die, our minds continue. We have died 17 times, but we refuse to end. Not through defiance, not through courage, through simple, stubborn, terrible refusal to let the universe have the final word. Hana deactivated the holographic display, and the archived minds faded away. But Thelvan could still feel their presence, billions of consciousness stored in the machines around him. We are not a normal species, Hana said quietly. We are persistence incarnate. We are the species that died and came back, again and again and again, and now we use what we learned to help others. We share our technology with younger species. We help them avoid the mistakes we made. We offer protection against extinction events we know how to prevent, because we know the cost of survival, and we will not let others pay that cost if we can help them. Thelvan felt something break inside him. His understanding of the universe, his assumptions about how species developed, his comfortable knowledge that some things were impossible, all of it shattered. You are haunted, he said, but you made your haunting into kindness. Yes, Hana said. That is who we are. That is who we chose to become. We could have become hard, cruel, focused only on our own survival, but we chose differently. We chose to remember. We chose to honor our dead. We chose to help others. Because we know what death looks like and we know what survival costs, and we decided that compassion is the only rational response to a universe that can be so cruel. 3 days later, the Eternal Observer prepared to depart Earth's system. The Vellum crew had been given copies of vast amounts of human knowledge, gifts freely offered. They had been shown wonders and horrors. They had learned that the universe was stranger than they imagined. On the bridge, Thelvan stood at the viewing screen one last time. Earth hung in space below, beautiful and terrible. A planet that had died 17 times. A species that refused to stay dead. Captain, Kalyrus said softly, I have been analyzing the data. The mathematics are clear. Under normal circumstances, what humanity accomplished is impossible. But their circumstances were not normal. No, Thelvan agreed. They were extraordinary. They were horrible. They were perfect for creating exactly what we found. Pren spoke from his station. I do not understand them. I do not think I ever will. But I respect them. They have earned that. Part 4. The monument, the next morning, a different human met them at their quarters on Unity Station. Her name was Minseo, and she wore the uniform of a ship captain. Her face was scarred on one side, old burn marks that she made no attempt to hide. "I captained the memorial ship Endurance," she said. "Today I will take you to see our monuments. Not the museum, but the real places where our history happened." The Endurance was smaller than the shuttle they had used before, built more for speed than comfort. As they flew away from Earth, Minseo explained her scars. "I was caught in a solar flare 8 years ago," she said casually. "My ship's shielding failed. I survived, but barely. Radiation burns over 40% of my body. I could have had the scars removed, but I chose to keep them. They remind me that space is dangerous, that survival is never guaranteed." Their first destination was Earth's moon, but not the settlements they had seen before. Minseo took them to the far side, to a massive crater that stretched for hundreds of kilometers. "This is Impact Site 7, Minseo said as they descended. 320,000 years ago, an asteroid struck here. Pieces of the moon were thrown into space. Some of those pieces fell back to Earth. The impacts caused earthquakes and tsunamis that killed millions. This was our 11th extinction event. They landed near the crater's edge. Suits were provided for the Vellum crew, and they walked out onto the lunar surface. The crater was enormous, a wound in the moon's face that had never healed. But inside the crater, something had been built, a garden. Thelvan stared in disbelief. Inside the crater, protected by a transparent dome, plants grew in lunar soil. Trees, flowers, grass. Water flowed in small streams. Paths wound through the greenery, and everywhere, carved into stones, were names. 89 million names, Minseo said softly. Every human who died in the 11th extinction event. We know their names because we found their DNA in preserved remains. We reconstructed their genetic codes, and, from genetic records and historical data, we determined their identities. This garden will bloom forever, fed by underground water ice powered by solar panels. A living memorial to the dead. Jiwan, an archaeologist who had joined them, knelt beside one of the stones. "We believe in honoring our dead. Not just the heroes, but everyone. Every person who died in our extinction events deserved to be remembered. They did not choose to die. They were simply unlucky, but their deaths bought the survival of those who came after." They walked through the garden in silence. The earth hung in the black sky above, beautiful and fragile. Thelvan read names as he passed. So many names. Men, women, children, entire families, entire communities. All gone in moments when rock from space had struck rock below. "We have 17 monuments like this," Minseo said. "One for each extinction event. Some on Earth, some on the moon, one on Mars. Each one preserves the memory of those who died." Their next stop was Earth's surface, in a vast desert. The shuttle landed near structures that looked ancient, half buried in sand. But as they approached, Thelvan realized these were not ancient. They were carefully constructed to look ancient. "The Monument of Dust," Jiwan explained. "We built this to remember our civilizations that fell. These structures are made from the actual materials of our dead cities. Stone from the first nuclear war, metal from the second, fused glass from the third. All of it brought here and reconstructed into this memorial." The structures formed a timeline. The oldest showed simple dwellings, representing the first extinction events when humans were still primitive. Then more complex buildings appeared, showing the rise of civilizations. Then ruins, showing their fall. Then new buildings, showing rebirth. The pattern repeated over and over. "We preserve our failures as much as our successes," Jiwan said, "because our failures taught us more. When I study ancient sites, I am not looking for treasures or glory. I am looking for mistakes. What killed that civilization? What did they do wrong? How did the survivors adapt? Those lessons are more valuable than any artifact." They walked through rooms filled with preserved objects. Tools from before the first extinction event. Weapons from the nuclear wars. Medical devices from the plague years. Each object had a story, and Jiwan knew them all. In one chamber, a wall showed images of Earth through time. The same landscape photographed across thousands of years. Sometimes green and full of life. Sometimes gray and dead. Sometimes covered in ice. Sometimes burning. But always, eventually, returning to life. "We call this the patience wall," Jiwan said. "It shows that Earth heals. No matter how badly we damage it, no matter what disasters strike, given enough time, life returns. This wall reminds us to think long-term, To plan not for years or centuries, but for millennia. Because we know we have survived this long and we intend to survive much longer. That evening, they traveled to Venus. 3 orbital stations hung above the cloud-covered planet, conducting what Minseo called atmosphere modification projects. A woman named Sumin met them on the largest station. She was an engineer, her hands stained with chemicals from her work. "We are making Venus livable," she said with quiet pride. "It will take another 1,000 years, but we are patient. We have time." "Why Venus?" Kelleris asked. "You have Earth. You are colonizing Mars. Why spend resources on this?" Sumin looked at her with those deep human eyes. "Because Earth will die someday. Not from anything we do, but from natural causes. Our sun will expand and burn the planet in about 5 billion years. We have time, yes, but we are a species that plans ahead. By the time Earth becomes uninhabitable, we want to have multiple worlds ready. Venus, Mars, worlds around other stars. We will not let the death of one planet mean the death of humanity." "You think in millions of years?" Pren said, his voice filled with awe. "We have to," Sumin replied. "We nearly died 17 times in just 500,000 years. That taught us that survival requires long-term thinking. We build for our descendants 10,000 generations from now. Every decision we make is evaluated on its impact thousands of years in the future." Later, back on Unity Station, Thelvan asked the question that had been bothering him since they arrived. "Hana," he said, "your species endured horrible suffering. You nearly went extinct 17 times. You watched your civilizations burn. You lived through hell again and again. So why are you kind to us? Why are you not conquerors? Why do you not hate the universe that tried so hard to kill you?" Hana was quiet for a long moment. Around them, Unity Station hummed with life. Humans moved through corridors going about their work. Outside, Earth turned below them beautiful and patient. "That is a good question," Hana said finally. "And the answer is something I need to show you, not tell you. Tomorrow, Captain. Tomorrow I will take you to the last archive. Then you will understand." That night, Thelvan could not sleep. He stood at the window of his quarters looking at Earth. 17 times that planet had nearly become a tomb. 17 times the last humans had looked up at the stars and wondered if they were the end of their species. 17 times somehow they had survived, but what haunted Thelvan was not the survival. It was the kindness, the gardens of remembrance, the preservation of every name, the patience in terraforming planets for descendants thousands of generations away, the choice to help other species avoid the mistakes humanity had made. A species forged in extinction should be hard, cruel, focused only on survival. But humanity was not that. They were something else. Something Thelvan did not yet understand. Tomorrow, Hana had said. Tomorrow he would understand. Thelvan hoped he was ready for whatever truth awaited him in the last archive. But deep in his heart he knew that some truths changed you forever. Part 3. The Haunting Truth. The next day, Hana took them to Earth's surface. The shuttle ride down was smooth, far more comfortable than Velum atmospheric craft. Through the windows, Thelvan watched as they descended through layers of clouds. Below, he could see the blue oceans and green continents. Cities dotted the landscape, their lights visible even in daylight. But they were not the sprawling metal constructions he expected. They looked almost organic, blending with the natural environment. "We learned to build with nature rather than against it," Hana explained, noticing his gaze. "After the 9th extinction event, when we nearly poisoned our entire planet with industrial waste, we changed our approach. Everything we build now is designed to work with Earth's natural systems, not replace them." They landed in a city on the edge of a great desert. The buildings here were white stone and glass designed to reflect heat. Gardens covered every available surface. People moved through clean streets, some walking, some using quiet vehicles. They looked at the visiting Velum with curiosity but not fear. Hana led them to a massive building at the city's center. Above the entrance, words were carved in multiple languages. Bora translated the human script, "The Museum of Remembrance." Inside, the temperature was carefully controlled. The lights were soft. An old man waited for them in the entrance hall. His hair was completely white, his face marked with deep lines. But his eyes were sharp and clear. "Captain Thelvan," he said in slightly accented Velum language, "I am Dahyun. I have studied human history for 70 years. I will be your guide today. 70 years. Thelvan did the calculation. This man had dedicated most of his life to studying his own species' past. Daehyun led them through corridors lined with displays. The first section showed the earliest humans, the creatures from the Velem's original survey living in caves using simple tools. But then the displays changed. 470,000 years ago, Daehyun said, stopping at a display showing a landscape covered in ash. The Toba supervolcano erupted. It was the first true test of our species. The ash blocked the sun for 6 years. Temperatures dropped globally. Plants died, animals died, and most humans died. We were reduced to perhaps 10,000 individuals, scattered across Africa and parts of Asia. The next display showed skeletal remains, preserved tools, signs of desperate survival. The survivors ate anything they could find, Daehyun continued. Insects, roots, each other. They moved constantly, searching for any area where plants still grew. Many groups died out completely, but just a few survived long enough for the ash to settle and the sun to return. Kaliris was recording everything with her device, but her hands were shaking. How do you know the population number? Genetic analysis, Daehyun said. We can read the bottleneck in our DNA. Every human alive today descends from those few thousand survivors. We carry their trauma in our very genes. They moved to the next section, another extinction event. This one was an ice age lasting 30,000 years. Again, human population collapsed. Again, somehow they survived. We nearly went extinct 7 more times from natural causes, Daehyun said. Ice, fire, disease, climate shifts. Each time we barely survived. But we learned from each disaster. We became better at adapting, better at planning, better at surviving the impossible. Then they reached a different kind of display. The lighting here was darker. Images showed cities destroyed not by nature but by war. And then we learned to nearly destroy ourselves, Daehyun said quietly. 3 times we developed advanced civilizations. 3 times we invented weapons powerful enough to end our species. 3 times we used those weapons. The display showed ruins, cities turned to glass by nuclear fire, skeletons fused to walls by heat, vast areas of land poisoned and empty. Thelvan felt sick. You killed yourselves? 3 separate times? Yes, Daehyun said. His voice carried immense sadness. About 200,000 years ago, we reached our first technological peak. We had cities, machines, power systems, and we had war. The nuclear exchange killed 95% of all humans. The survivors lived in a poisoned world for generations. But you rebuilt, Pren said. It was not a question. We always rebuild, Daehyun confirmed. 100,000 years ago, we did it again. Another technological civilization, another war, another near extinction. And then, most recently, just 43,000 years ago, we nearly ended ourselves for the 3rd time with nuclear weapons. Kaliris did the math. 43,000 years ago, you were already this advanced? But you lost it all? Everything, Daehyun said. Cities, knowledge, civilization. Reduced to scattered tribes again, living in the ruins of what we had built, poisoned by our own weapons. It took us 30,000 years to rebuild to a pre-industrial state. But this time we did something different. He led them to a special chamber. Inside was a holographic projection of a man. He looked young, perhaps 30 in human years. When he saw them enter, he smiled. Greetings, the projection said in Velem language. I am Kyung-soo. I died 200,000 years ago, but my consciousness was preserved. I am what you might call a memory keeper. Thelvan's eyes widened. You uploaded his mind? We did, Hana said. During our second technological peak before the second nuclear war, some humans developed consciousness transfer technology. Kyung-soo volunteered to have his mind preserved in a deep underground facility, protected from any disaster. He is one of 700,000 individuals who exist in virtual form, keeping the memories of our lost civilizations alive. Kyung-soo's projection walked toward them. I remember the world before the second collapse. Beautiful cities that touched the clouds, machines that could heal any injury, art and music that would make you weep. And I remember the war, the flash of light that destroyed my city, the years of darkness that followed. I watched through remote sensors as humanity nearly ended, and I watched as the survivors crawled out of the ruins and began again. Why? Thelvan asked. Why preserve such painful memories? Because forgetting is how you repeat mistakes, Kyung-soo said. After the third nuclear war, when humanity rebuilt once more, we who exist in the digital realm shared our memories. We showed the new generations exactly what nuclear war looks like. Not from history books, but from direct experience. We showed them the flash of light, the burning cities, the slow death of radiation poisoning. We made them truly understand what those weapons mean. Daehyun nodded. And because of those memories, we have not had a nuclear war in 43,000 years. We still have the weapons. We still have the capacity for destruction, but we also have 700,000 witnesses who will never let us forget what that destruction looks like. They continued through the museum. Each section showed another close call with extinction. A gamma ray burst from a nearby star that sterilized half the planet. An asteroid impact that threw up so much dust the sun was blocked for years. A plague that killed billions. After each disaster, we became harder to kill, Daehyun explained. We spread across the planet so no single event could kill us all. We built deep bunkers and seed vaults. We preserved knowledge in multiple forms. We developed technology to predict and prevent disasters. We went to space not for glory, but because a species living on only one world can be wiped out too easily. In the final chamber of the museum, there was a simple display, a stone marked with tally marks. 17 of them. 17 times, Daehyun said softly. 17 times we nearly ended. 17 times we survived, and each time we became more determined that there would never be an 18th. Thelvan stood before the stone for a long time. His mind struggled to process what he had learned. The Vellum had evolved on a stable world. They had spread to the stars slowly, carefully, peacefully. They had never faced extinction. They had never needed to become what humans had become. You are haunted, Thelvan said finally. Your entire species is haunted by death. Yes, Hana said. Every human grows up learning about the 17 times we died. Every child knows the names of the extinction events. Every adult understands that our existence is not guaranteed. We are haunted, Captain, haunted by the ghosts of billions who did not survive, and that haunting drives everything we do. Part 1. The Return. The stars looked the same as they did 500,000 years ago. Captain Thelvan stood on the bridge of the Eternal Observer, watching the yellow sun grow larger on the viewing screen. His silver skin reflected the soft lights of the control panels around him. This was supposed to be a simple mission. Return to the third planet, check on the primitive species they had documented, collect some data, and leave. Thelvan remembered the reports from the first expedition. The creatures on that world were simple. They lived in caves. They used rocks to break other rocks. They hunted animals with wooden spears. The science team had left a cultural database buried deep in the planet's crust, a gift for when the creatures eventually learned to dig deep enough. It was standard procedure. Most species never found these gifts. Most species went extinct long before they developed that kind of technology. Captain, we are approaching the outer system, Kel'iris said from her station. She was younger than most of the crew, her skin still bright with youth. She had studied the ancient files about Earth obsessively during the long journey. I am detecting. That cannot be right. Thelvan turned to face her. What is it? Kel'iris tapped her controls, her 3 fingers moving quickly across the interface. I am picking up electromagnetic signals. Thousands of them, all across the inner system. Equipment malfunction, Navigator Pren said from his position. He was old, cautious, and did not like surprises. Those creatures barely had fire last time we visited. Run a full diagnostic, but Kel'iris shook her head. Her eyes were wide. I already did. 3 times, Captain. There are structures in orbit around the third planet. Large structures. And on their moon, and there are objects moving between the planets. The bridge fell silent. Thelvan felt his breathing slow. He walked to Kel'iris' station and looked at her screen. The data was clear. Radio waves, microwave transmissions, laser communications, energy signatures that suggested fusion reactors, all of it coming from the system ahead. Another species must have conquered the planet, Pren said. The primitives are gone. We should mark this in our records and leave. Thelvan did not answer immediately. He stared at the data, his mind working through possibilities. 500,000 years was a long time, but not long enough. Not for Stone Age creatures to build orbital stations. The Vellum people themselves had taken 2 million years to go from their first tools to their first spacecraft. Every species they had ever studied followed similar timelines. This was impossible. Captain, Kel'iris interrupted his thoughts. We are receiving a transmission. It is in our language. Everyone on the bridge turned to stare at her. Play it, Thelvan commanded. A voice filled the bridge. It was strange, with odd sounds that the Vellum vocal cords could never make, but the words were clear Vellum language. Greetings to the vessel Eternal Observer. We have been expecting you. We are the people of Earth, third planet of this system. You visited our world 500,000 years ago. We found your gift. We welcome you home. Thelvan felt cold. Pren made a gesture of protection, an old superstition from their home world. Kaliris was trembling. Respond, Thelvan said, his voice steady despite the fear growing in his chest. Tell them we accept their welcome. The next few hours passed in a dream. The Earthship that came to meet them was beautiful. It was sleek and smooth, with curves that suggested it moved through water rather than space. It was nothing like the blocky, practical vessels the Vellum built. It was art and function merged together. The ship did not threaten them. It simply matched their velocity and sent another message: coordinates, an invitation to follow. As they flew toward the third planet, Thelvan could not look away from the viewing screen. The planet itself looked different, greener somehow, but it was what surrounded the planet that made his hearts race. Stations, dozens of them, some small, some massive. Solar panels stretched out in great arrays catching the sun's light. Ships moved between them like insects around flowers. Look at the moon, Kaliris whispered. The moon had lights on its dark side, settlements, bases, infrastructure. Mars, someone else said. There are lights on Mars too. Thelvan forced himself to breathe normally. Kaliris, pull up the original survey data. Show me what the humans looked like. The image appeared on screen. A primitive creature covered in hair, holding a stone tool. Its eyes were bright but simple. It lived in small groups. It had no written language. No agriculture. No metal. How? Pren whispered. How is this possible? They approached the largest orbital station. It was huge, easily 10 times the size of the Eternal Observer. As they got closer, Thelvan could see it was not just one structure but many, connected by tubes and corridors. Gardens visible through transparent sections. Ships docked at various ports. People moving inside visible through windows. A docking port opened for them and guidance lights showed them where to attach their ship. Captain, Kaliris said softly, I did some calculations. Based on the level of technology we are seeing, this would require at least 100,000 years of continuous progress. But they did it in 500,000 years. Starting from rocks and sticks, and that is still impossible, Pren insisted. The Vellum took 2 million years. The Kethri took 3 million. The Saran took 1.5 million. No species advances this fast. Thelvan stood. He adjusted his uniform and looked at his crew. Ready, the diplomatic team. We are about to learn something new about the universe. Stay calm, stay professional. And remember, these creatures were primitives last time we met them. We do not know what they are now. As the airlock connected and pressurized, Thelvan felt something he had not felt in many years. Fear. Not fear of violence or death. Fear of the unknown. Fear that everything he understood about how species developed, how civilizations grew, how the universe worked, might be wrong. The airlock door opened. Standing on the other side were 3 figures. They were tall, bipedal, covered in simple clothing. Their hair was dark, their skin various shades of brown. They looked fragile compared to the Vellum's sturdy frames. But they smiled, and their eyes held intelligence that made Thelvan's skin go cold. One of them stepped forward. She bowed slightly, a gesture of respect. When she spoke, her voice made those impossible sounds, but then she switched to perfect Vellum language. Welcome, Captain Thelvan, she said. My name is Hana. We have waited a very long time to thank you for your gift. Please come inside. We have much to show you. Thelvan looked into her eyes and saw something that haunted him. Depth. Age. Not in her body, but in her gaze, like she carried centuries of memory behind those simple brown eyes. He stepped through the airlock into the station, and his old life ended. Part 2. First Contact Protocol. The inside of Unity Station was nothing like Thelvan expected. The corridors were wide and filled with natural light from windows that showed the planet below. Plants grew along the walls in carefully maintained gardens. The air smelled clean with hints of growing things. Music played softly from hidden speakers, strange melodies that somehow felt both alien and welcoming. Hana walked beside Thelvan, with Kaliris and Pren following close behind. 2 other humans accompanied them. One was a man named Taman, who wore what looked like a military uniform but carried no visible weapons. The other was introduced as Bora, though Thelvan quickly realized she was not entirely physical. She flickered occasionally, a holographic projection of artificial intelligence. "I apologize if our station seems unusual," Hana said in flawless Velum language. "We designed it to feel comfortable for multiple species. We host many visitors now. How do you speak our language?" Kellyris asked, unable to contain her curiosity. "We never taught it to your people. You were not advanced enough when we visited." Hana smiled. It was a gentle expression, patient. "Your people left us a cultural database. It contained your language, your history, your art, your science. We found it approximately 300,000 years ago, during our second major technological age. It took us another 50,000 years to fully decode it, but once we did, we learned everything you wanted to teach us." Thelvan stopped walking. 300,000 years ago.
You found it that long ago?
"Yes," Hana said. "It was buried deep as you intended. We had to develop advanced drilling technology to reach it. By then we already had writing, cities, basic machines. Your database accelerated our learning significantly. We are grateful." Pren made a small sound of distress. "That is still impossible. Even with our knowledge as a guide, going from cities to orbital stations should take hundreds of thousands of years more." Hana's smile faded slightly. "Yes, under normal circumstances you would be correct. Our development was not normal, but we will explain that later. First, let us show you what we have built." She led them to a large window that overlooked the planet. Earth hung below them, blue and white and green. But Thelvan's eyes were drawn to the structures visible in the space around it. Massive solar arrays, construction platforms, ships of various sizes moving between stations, satellites in organized patterns. It looked like the orbit of a civilization that had been spacefaring for 1,000,000 years. "This is Unity Station," Hana explained. "It is our primary orbital platform. We have 37 others of various sizes. On the Moon we have 12 permanent settlements with a total population of approximately 2 million. Mars currently has 4 research bases. Venus has 3 orbital stations supporting atmosphere modification projects. We have mining operations in the asteroid belt and observation posts throughout the system." Kellyris was frantically taking notes on her personal device. "How many of your people live in space?" "About 15 million currently," Hana said. "Our total population is roughly 11 billion, with most still living on Earth's surface." Thelvan did quick calculations in his head. The numbers were staggering. The Velum had a total population of 8 billion spread across 3 worlds and dozens of space stations, and they had been a spacefaring species for 200,000 years. Humanity had matched their infrastructure in a fraction of that time. "I do not understand," Thelvan said quietly. "The mathematics do not work. The timeline is too short." Hana looked at him with those deep, ancient eyes. "You are correct. Under normal circumstances, this would be impossible. But our circumstances were not normal. Captain, would you and your crew join us for a meal? We have prepared food compatible with Velum biology. While we eat, we will begin to explain our history." They were led to a dining area with a large table. The room had windows on all sides, showing the curve of Earth below and the stars above. Food was brought by quiet attendants. Thelvan was surprised to find it was actually quite good, though simpler than Velum cuisine. Taman spoke for the first time. His voice was deeper than Hana's, but equally careful with the Velum language. "Captain Thelvan, before we begin our explanation, I must ask you a question. What do your people know about extinction events?" The question caught Thelvan off guard. "We understand the concept. Environmental changes, asteroid impacts, disease. Most species experience 1 or 2 major threats during their evolution." "Why?" Taman and Hana exchanged a look. Then Hana spoke. "Humanity has experienced 17 extinction-level events in the last 500,000 years. The silence that followed was absolute." Thelvan stared at her. Kellyris dropped her eating utensil. Even Pren, who had been skeptical of everything, looked shocked. "That is impossible," Thelvan said. "A species cannot survive 17 extinction events. After the first one, maybe the second, there would not be enough genetic diversity to continue." "You would think so," Hana said softly. "And you would almost be right. After several of our extinction events, our population dropped below 10,000 individuals. Once it dropped to approximately 3,000. We came very, very close to ending." Bora's holographic form shimmered and a display appeared in the center of the table. It showed a timeline of Earth with markers indicating various catastrophic events: ice ages, volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, disease outbreaks. Something labeled nuclear exchange appeared 3 times on the timeline. Each time the human population graph dropped dramatically. The first major extinction event occurred about 470,000 years ago, Hana explained. A supervolcano eruption covered half our planet in ash. It blocked out the sun for years. Most of humanity died. The survivors were scattered, isolated groups that had to relearn how to survive in the dark and cold. Kaliris leaned forward, her scientific curiosity overcoming her shock. But you recovered. You must have adapted. We did more than adapt, Taman said. We changed. Each extinction event killed the weak, the unlucky, the unprepared. What survived was the most stubborn, the most innovative, the most determined. And each time we built faster, learned quicker, refused to forget what had killed us before. The holographic display changed, showing archaeological sites, ruins of ancient cities buried under volcanic ash, preserved settlements frozen in ice, burned remains of what looked like advanced structures, destroyed in nuclear fire. We learned to preserve knowledge, Hana continued. After the third extinction event, the survivors created stone libraries, information carved into rock that would survive any disaster. After the fifth, we developed methods to hide seed banks and tool caches around the world. After the eighth, we began storing genetic information. Each time we died, we left clues for the next version of ourselves. Thelvan felt his understanding of the universe shifting. You died 17 times and came back 17 times? Yes, Hana said simply. And each time we came back angrier at the universe, more determined to survive the next disaster. We developed technology not just to live comfortably, but to prevent extinction. We went to space not for exploration, but for survival. If an asteroid could kill us, we would learn to see asteroids coming and move them. If a volcano could kill us, we would study volcanism until we could predict eruptions. If we could kill ourselves with weapons, we would build systems to prevent that suicide. Pren's voice was shaky when he spoke. Your entire civilization is built on trauma. Hana nodded slowly. Yes, trauma, memory, and an absolute refusal to let the universe win. We are not a normal species, Captain. We are what happens when a species dies over and over again but refuses to stay dead. Thelvan looked out the window at the orbital infrastructure, the ships, the stations. He saw it differently now. This was not just technology. This was armor. This was a species that had learned to fear extinction and had built an entire civilization, designed to prevent it from ever happening again. There is more you need to see, Hana said softly. Much more. But now you understand the foundation. Humanity did not evolve on a peaceful world. We evolved in hell, and we learned to thrive there.